Good, we're good. So good afternoon and welcome to CUS Webinar Wednesday, Gamifying Library Instruction Using Technology to Make Learning Engaging. My name is Kelly McAllister and I am the current chair of the College and University section of the North Carolina Library Association.
Alrighty, so thank you all for joining me for something a little fun today. As Kelly said, my name is Brittany O'Neill and I'm currently a librarian at Hodges University in Southwest Florida. Now, some of you may not have tried out games for instruction, but certainly I think most of you have heard about the idea or maybe even played them in your own life. I am of the generation that grew up playing Oregon Trail on the school computers and then finishing off my night with a Jumpstart educational CD-ROM, so gaming and education is nothing new to me and I'm sure not to you. However, it's only been in the past handful of years that librarians have started not only using games for instruction, but creating games for instruction. Today, I'm going to give you a taste of what I've done here at Hodges in using gaming elements in my instruction and how you might do the same to make your instruction more engaging. Now, before I go into any of these strategies, just a few goals for what I hope you leave here with. In this session, I'm going to give you a lot of inspiration, examples of what I've done, what others have done, and potential ideas for the future. We're going to go over a handful of different easy-to-use tools, so you should get a good idea of what might work for your situation. Most of all, the one thing I hope you don't get out of this is that you have to make everything a game. We'll go over when and how to do it to make it the most effective. First of all, how did I get into gamification in the first place? I currently work with a lot of the lower level general education faculty as the liaison to the School of Liberal Studies. As such, I see a lot of those incoming students who are coming in with low research skills, in addition to seeing the upper level students who perhaps haven't progressed as much as we would have expected them to. Here at Hodges, we've tried out multiple strategies to try to reach these students. About 2 years ago, we were really on the kick of testing out flipped classroom style teaching. Rather than just doing the one-shot library instruction, we would give the students some homework before we came in. We tried to make the homework more engaging, so we included a lot of YouTube videos on plagiarism and APA, but in the midst of trying to find fun, low-stakes assignments to include, we ran into some research-related online games to throw in. We tested this out with many classes, including our Foundations for College Success and Strategic Thinking courses, which are generally for first semester students. We had a great response from faculty and students, whether the games were done on their own or played in class. One of the professors in particular really latched onto this idea and suggested that we create our own game, customized to those issues our students were having with APA style. Furthering this need is the growth in online classes. Our online course offerings are growing in place of those face-to-face classes, even offering entirely online programs. We're already at about 73% of our students taking some or all of their classes online, and that number's only growing. Because of this, we have even less interaction with students, and experiments to remedy this with things like being embedded in their online courses just haven't proven fruitful. Even with our face-to-face classes, we sometimes face the all too familiar challenge of not getting too much time in the classroom or getting invited at all. With all of this combined, there was a desire to make something more engaging than just a lecture or a quiz, and something that could work on an as-needed, self-paced basis, something that could work face-to-face as an online assignment or even as a quick refresher students could do on their own. Once I decided I wanted to try to create a game, I had to establish what I hoped the outcomes would be. I started out creating a game that would address common problems our students have with APA style. To figure out what these common problems are, I spoke with some of the liberal studies faculty to discuss the problems they've frequently seen their students encounter, including identifying what source type they were citing, how to format their headers, how to cite journal articles, and understanding why proper citations are so important. In addition, because we in the library offer to review students' papers, we have our own anecdotal evidence of what misunderstandings students are coming to us with. Here's some of what we took as inspiration for our game, and perhaps you may have seen or used them before. One of the games we stumbled into during our flipped classroom trials was Goblin Threat from Mary Broussard at Lycoming College. Goblin Threat is sort of an escape the room game where players have to find elusive goblins throughout different rooms on campus and answer all of their questions before they can move on. Students loved playing through this because it was so interactive, had levels, and had great graphics. Plus, it was challenging. They seemed to enjoy the fact that it was difficult to answer all of the questions. When looking for a game that addressed APA, we ran into the RoboSite game from Ali Addison and Elaine Settergren of Globe University. This game requires students to answer questions about APA to repair the school's APA robot. While I knew the library couldn't support the game design skills needed for a game similar to Goblin Threat, this interface looked manageable. I saw it was built using Twine, so I tested it out, and I'll be telling you a little bit about that later. For those of you who may still need a little clarification of what gamification is, here's an overview. Gamification doesn't need to involve months of graphic design and coding and a complicated platform. Essentially, gamification is as simple as using game mechanics to engage players in a challenge in a non-game scenario, such as education, with the goal being to make it more fun. These game elements can include any or all of the characteristics we think of when we think about games, including sets of rules that dictate gameplay, interactivity with the game or with other players, set goals to accomplish, feedback on progress or right or wrong moves, some level of storytelling, and a problem to solve. Like I said, a game doesn't have to involve all of these elements, but these should probably sound familiar to you from any type of game you've ever played. Game mechanics can be applied to create something as complicated as a full video game to something as simple as a progress bar. Actually, a lot of brands in your life are already gamified, and you may not have realized it. If you track your exercise using MyFitnessPal or Nike Plus, if you fight to become the mayor of your favorite restaurant in Foursquare, or even network on LinkedIn, you have been caught by gamification. Now that's all well and good, but what's the science behind it? Well, games are great for engagement because they are both intrinsically and extrinsically motivating, meaning that players are not just motivated by the potential for rewards or a grade, but they're also motivated by just the pride in their achievements and the fun of it. On top of that, games are an ideal format for library instruction, which is typically not formally graded or at least not a high-stakes assessment. This is because games are so low pressure. Instructional designer and gamification expert Carl Kapp, definitely recommend you read some of his stuff, often refers to this as the freedom to fail concept. We all know that games are no fun played on easy mode. Games are designed to be challenging. Not only do players have the freedom to fail, but they're expected to fail, and they expect to fail. Most games, and if you design it correctly, gamified instruction, give you limitless attempts to try over and over again until you get it right. This ties into the ACRL framework, creating those challenges and allowing them to fail and feel those complex emotions that are critical to the information seeking process in the Searching as Strategic Exploration standard. So if you're struggling with getting buy-in to test this out, there's your ACRL selling point. For a little bit of the data that goes into it, a meta-study was done by Randall, Morris, Wetzel, and Whitehill on research on gamified classroom instruction over about a 30-year span. And in this, they found that 88% of the studies they surveyed, in that gamified instruction was as effective or more effective than traditional instruction. And more recently, just this year, a study on a gamified psychology course from Stansberry and Ernest showed that there was a higher perception of learning, motivation, and engagement in a gamified course than a traditional course format. So the numbers show some promise for this strategy. Finally, let's get into what I've done here. This first game I created that I've been talking about is our Zombie APA game, which I can proudly say was selected for inclusion in ACRL's Primo database just last month. I built this game using the open source freeware Twine, which I'll go over in just a minute. In this game, zombies have overtaken the library, and students must correctly answer questions about APA style to earn pieces of the antidote to cure the zombies. Also using Twine, I created an interactive library orientation for our distance learners. And then moving on to a different free product, which is Microsoft Sway, available online with any Microsoft account, I created a game for identifying fake news and bias. So let's start with Twine, and I can show you what I've created and how to create one yourself. So I'm going to move over to the web here. Okay, so this is the zombie game, and I'll show you this so you get an idea of what something made with Twine looks like. It's pretty simple, just a choose your own adventure type of deal, where you click on your choice and it moves you down a pathway. I chose to make mine not too complicated, but I think Twine is powerful enough to handle a more complicated concept. To give you an idea of how game mechanics are at play, you'll notice that there's a goal to cure the zombies, that there's feedback as you progress, and there are problems to solve. I also wanted to show you our library orientation, which we have embedded in a LibGuide. And this is also built with Twine. This is shared with our new students as part of the required orientation. And this is just a basic overview of the library services, but it's also interactive with our website, forcing the students to locate resources that are relevant to their major and explore the databases, etc. Even something like this is gamified. It has both the interactivity and problem-solving elements. Just so you get an idea of how you can apply one or two game elements without making something that is so obviously a game. Now let me give you a little more information on Twine and how it's built. As I said, Twine is open source and free. It's browser-based, so if you're using a browser that wipes its history every night or switch between multiple computers when you're working, this might not be the best choice for you. It works sort of like a storyboard, and I'll show you what it looks like on the back end. This is what that APA game looks like when you build it. You start with a new box on your page, that's your launching, and that acts sort of as your start screen. From there, you create a hyperlink to the next page. Once you close it off, you'll see that it creates a pathway to the next box. When you go to test it, it should run smoothly. If any of this is confusing, Twine is great in that it has lots of help documentation to get you started. And if you ever do get confused, you can erase everything in your box and it will give you all of the code that you can use. It also auto-saves, which is great. Like I said, you can make Twine really simple and it won't involve really any coding at all. You can use some basic HTML to throw in text formatting and images like I've done, or you can even get completely complicated and change everything using CSS. It's up to you, but you can make it work at any level that you're working at. The nice thing is that it saves all of this as an HTML file, so you can host it and embed it however you want to. This is just a really cursory overview, so I highly recommend you go play with it and check out their wiki pages for help. So I guess the big thing is any of this effective? So to go over that, here's some data from the APA game. Last semester, I had students in all 4 sections of our strategic thinking class play the game at their own pace in class. This activity was in addition to probably 6 or 7 other activities done in class on APA and on other topics. In the end of class survey that I did, about 37% of students listed this game as the most helpful part of the class. In addition, the game is embedded in different parts of our website, and since I posted it a year and a half ago, it has been consistently one of the top 25 most clicked on assets of anything on our website, including our databases. Also, just a couple of weeks ago, one of our English composition faculty really latched onto it, and we embedded it into part of a scavenger hunt that they had to complete. So it's been pretty successful. Now I'm going to show you a couple of other tools that are out there. So I mentioned this before, Microsoft Sway. This is an online storytelling tool from Microsoft. You just have to use a Microsoft email, which if you don't have one, you can get it for free. And let me show you the fake news game I told you about so you get an idea of what it can do. It has a lot of really neat options for the interface, but it's great because I've been able to incorporate other Microsoft products like Forms, which I'll show you, to throw in feedback elements. And this is basically just a game that presents different news stories and they have to determine by fact checking whether or not they're true or false. And this is one of the feedback elements. So if you answer it incorrectly, it will give you some tips on how to change it up. Now let me show you what it looks like when you go to build. They're all just cards, sort of like a storyboard that you can put images, videos, etc. on, and then scroll on to the next card. You can use different focus points and emphasis, and it will shift how those items appear on the page. It's responsive to a tiny bit of coding, but generally it's less customizable than anything you can do in Twine. With that, however, it's much more beginner level, so anybody could figure out how to use this pretty easily. You can embed all kinds of things to make this more engaging and interactive, such as videos, audio clips from SoundCloud, Google Maps, polls, and it even works with some virtual reality programs. You can change the layout or the design with one click. And if you have activities already in another format, such as in a Word document or a PowerPoint, you can upload those and it will build it all for you. Just another cool tool to try out. And one more here, one that's already very popular in K through 12, which is Kahoot. It's sort of a gamified version of an iClicker or Poll Everywhere, some type of polling tool. This is another very easy to create game technique that really works well live in the classroom. Now, I won't go into how it would actually play through because I'll have to force you all to take your phones out, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like. On the back end, it's very easy. You just add questions, put them in, give them a time limit, give them options, and off you go. It's very quick. So basically, you create questions that come up on your screen, and they can also include multimedia elements, and students log in on any device and race each other to the correct answer. It comes up with a leaderboard, so students can try to beat each other. As I said, it's very easy to build and works great in the classroom, especially at the beginning of class or when the energy starts to die. There are some other tools that I've dabbled in that I thought I'd also mention. I actually just started using LibWizard to create some self-paced instructional modules for our online classes. So to show you what one of those look like, it's not technically free, although I know many of us have LibWizard as part of our SpringShare suite of products in addition to LibGuides. They recently came out with the full LibWizard suite, which is actually gamified already in how it's designed, but you can do very similar things with just the basic LibWizard package, which is what I've done here, using forms and surveys. So there's another opportunity there of libraries and universities offering badges for completing certain activities. You may have seen this before. Websites like Open Badges from Mozilla allow you to create and issue badges to your students for, say, completing a scavenger hunt or checking out a certain number of books. It's just an easy way to gamify the library experience with very little effort. Another tool out there is Scratch, which allows you to really easily code something interactive using little building blocks. There are tons of free tools out there beyond this, and actually lots of open source library-related games already out there that you can adapt for your own use. So you just have to get out there and play with them. Briefly, I wanted to talk about how you can use gamification for more than just instruction. Gamification is also a great choice for training. For example, you could create gamified tutorials that maybe teach students at the circulation desk about different policies. This can be incredibly effective because users are probably more likely to retain that information when they're in something more engaging than just passively reading a handbook. I've also proposed to some of our faculty the idea of creating interactive syllabi using Twine, which is something I saw librarians and faculty at the California College of the Arts try out with an African arts pedagogy course. And I've got a link to it here. Take a look at it. It's a really cool use of gamification. Gamification has so many potential applications in instruction and beyond. Coming off the success of all of these games, I would love to start creating some more incentives for playing, such as using rewards and badges. Right now, I've been mostly focusing on just the fun of it or potentially offering for a small grade. I also hope to make these a more video game-like in the graphics. That takes a little bit of work. My next plan is to create games that are more interactive with the library's website and include more multimedia and feedback elements. Gamification can present some challenges. You need to incentivize playing in order to motivate them to play at all. If it's not incentivized enough, they won't play. It can be hard to get faculty buy-in, as it does take up some class time if you do it in the class. It does take a little bit of coding if you want to make it really look cool, although it doesn't necessarily need coding. But they won't be effective at all if they don't still line up with outcomes or objectives that you're trying to teach. Now, to finish it off, some tips for those of you who decide to try this out. One of the biggest pieces is making sure that you know the outcomes before you go into it. If you don't have a goal set for what you hope students are going to get out of it, they have nothing to engage with and it defeats the purpose. Make sure that you have clear goals set for what the students should learn by playing before you get started. That being said, don't focus too much on the outcomes. Let the student's goal be to just have fun. Try to focus on the intrinsic motivations rather than just pushing the external rewards. If the game is for a grade or a prize, don't constantly hit them over the head with that. When students think that the game is playing them, not only will they view the game negatively, but it might give them a negative outlook of the library. Of course, align it with lesson objectives. Don't get lost so much in creating something fun that you lose track of the whole purpose. Make it motivating. Incentivize the lessons through progress bars, badges, unlocking achievements, whatever you want to try. If it's not motivating enough, they aren't going to play. You can start small. It's okay to just throw a progress bar into a lesson or hand out candy for finishing something first. It can be great to go all in, but it's not always necessary. Every little bit can help. Now, I know this seems contrary to everything I've said so far, but not everything has to be a game. Choose wisely. It's very easy to go overboard on this, and when you make too many things gamified, not only does it lose its effectiveness, but students get disinterested. When you're considering gamification, think of other ways that you can make instruction more engaging and effective. If there's a simpler way, do that. Don't invest the time and energy if it's not truly worth it. But if gamification sounds like the perfect choice, the best candidates for gamification are activities that are already low stakes, can be done at a student's own pace, and are easy to frame into a storyline. So those are the ones you should really focus on. There's the references, and I actually have a link here. If you type that into your browser, that will take you to a page on my website that has these slides, as well as links to the games and a Zotero folder of some of the research behind gamification. So check that out if you want to learn a little bit more. And thank you all for listening.